Hey, Anders. So we're gonna try something tonight. So I'm gonna begin with a little prologue. I meant to write this down, finished writing it down and posting it on my WordPress, but due to technical issues on the computer, I didn't get it out. So we're gonna try doing what I'm going to call a visual story. I'm gonna sit here and tell you the host origin story. Now, I know he was the subject on my birthday, and some of you wrote some pretty awesome backstories. But, just bear with me, and I'm going to sit here and tell you the host origin story, and I hope you watch it. I hope you like the visual story, the video story. So, that's the prologue. So, let's begin. It's a very simple beginning. Needless to say, I survived the apocalypse on my version of Earth. When the solar space radiation hit the planet, it mutated people. It resurrected the dead into harmful black specters. And it brought forth holes in the world that let out cryptids like Sasquatch. A pack of Sasquatch could rip you apart faster than you blink, but being caught by a Wendigo was much worse. This mutation in people, of course, led to what we called the normals versus the mutants in a war that decimated most of the planet and the cities that surrounded it. I was lucky enough to survive in the remnant areas of Chicago, mostly by hiding. And after the war had cleared up, I made my living by scrap, getting people what they need: food, supplies, going to dangerous areas where mutants were seen and cryptids were seen. But the thing is, I survived because I was always faster than them, smarter than them. Till Chicago was taken over by a psychotic colonel who had survived the war. Him and his garrison, legion, whatever they call them nowadays. Many men, many tanks, many guns. The women were all turned over to the army to breed with them. We lost wives, daughters. He played like God amongst men, and I was conscribed into his army, and I was put onto border patrol. When a pack of chupacabra were attacking cattle, I was selected to go out in the woods and hunt them down. I didn't know the first thing about hunting chupacabra or anything. I, like I said, survived by scrapping and hiding. It was by fate I stumbled across the manor house and became what I am. I remember the pouring rain. I remember falling down the hill. I remember the chupacabra gave chase, the ones I was hunting. Four-legged, dog-like, hairless creatures, faster than you can fucking believe. One bit my leg up pretty good. I shot it. I shot wildly at them. When I hit the gates of the manor house for the first time and saw the grandeur of the house, I couldn't believe it. The gates opened at my touch, and I fell in, and the cabra, they ran off into the woods, howling, baying like they've been baying and howling, however it goes these days, like they had been seriously injured by the presence of the manor house. I limped to the door, dragging myself, bleeding freshly from where the chupacabra had bitten to my leg, and I began to knock. I began to beg for entrance. The door opened, and an elderly woman answered the door. Beth. What was her name? She was the host then. She was, like I said, elderly. But there was this almost ethereal, if not angelic, quality about her. It was like talking to my grandma. She let me in, and the second I entered the manor house, my leg had miraculously healed. I couldn't explain it. I was unharmed. She told me she had been waiting for me for a very, very, very long time. She said longer than any of her predecessors had ever been waiting for the replacements. Replacements? Needless to say, I was confused. Beth smiled, a warm, grammarly smile, and took me by the arm. She led me around the manor house, the wings, the endless corridors, the spirits that roamed in there, the libraries, the huddled, frightened masses who came through doorways and multiverses that worlds had ended, them sharing their stories of the paranormal and paranormal creatures that exist outside my world, existed in theirs too. All of them had a different end-time calamity. They were safe in the manor house. Beth kept leading me through. I had met ender after ender after ender. Something about the manor house made it feel like home, a real home for the first time, and God, I can't remember when. She introduced me to Memfred, the house troll who tried to bite off my hand the first time I met him. She scolded and reprimanded him, and he ran off into the house somewhere. It was something else. And then the final room she took me to was the room she called the Room of Records. It was the size of a warehouse. I couldn't believe it. Faces in the wall, painted, plastered into the wall, all of them talking. Yet no words would come out their mouths. She said these were the Enders, and these were the other hosts. And someday, all the people who lived in the manor house's faces would go into the wall. Her face would go into the wall. These people talking, these people telling stories, kept the worlds from falling into complete and utter darkness. Stories kept the world from falling into chaos. I heard something like that in the Eastern religion, but I wasn't a religious guy. And in that moment, I knew. That moment, I knew that the manor house was meant for me. That this was meant for me, and that I would take up this mantle, and I would become the host. She took me to an office. A vast golden book lay on the table, and gave off this immaculate yellowish light, and she called it the Book of Tomes. All those voices, all their stories, they're in that book, the most important book in the world. She told me that the manor house existed in other wares and other winds, not always a house like the one I was in, like the giant mansion I was in, but in other places, abandoned places that looked like abandoned buildings, warehouses that people always walked by and eyed with a bitter fascination. That's the manor house incarnation in that world, in that when, in that where. And when it ended, the people knew to flock there, to come in there. All except my world. They were still struggling with the mutants. They were still struggling with the cryptids. So in a moment, I took the pen, and I signed the Book of Tomes. And immortality and infinity was poured into me. My brain. I saw every incarnation of the manor house, every story ever told, everywhere, every when, all the Enders to come and all the Enders who had passed. Beth had disappeared. Mumfred had acknowledged me as the brand new host. And I walked down to the room of recording. There in the wall was Beth's face. I stroked it affectionately. And since then, I have stayed the host at the manor house at the end of the world, waiting for the day my replacement comes and my face joins the others in the wall.